I've got some troubling news about England's royal family.
King Charles had faced family rebellion, public scandal, and private betrayal, but nothing prepared him for the file placed before him that morning. Inside were accounts carrying royal identifiers, private authorization codes, and one name appearing again and again: Camilla. As William read the final page aloud, the king did not argue. He did not move. He simply stared at the woman beside him and froze. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William entered the restricted briefing at Buckingham Palace with a black folder beneath one arm. He had been summoned after royal auditors detected movements through monarchy-linked trust funds, private reserves created to hold money connected to royal duties. Charles expected a dull discussion about old procedures. Camilla expected the matter to disappear behind palace language. Neither understood that the prince had already traced every transfer. The closed door changed everything. William placed the folder on the table, opened it to a signed authorization page, and pushed it toward his father. He asked one question. Did the king recognize the approval code? Charles read the line once, then again. His hand slowed as he removed his glasses. No denial came. No command followed. The monarch set the glasses down and looked toward the queen consort with a silence heavier than anger. Camilla finally spoke. She insisted the accounts had been created to protect royal interests during unstable moments, not to undermine the crown. Yet her explanation deepened the wound. Charles had defended her place for years, and now money appeared to have moved beneath his authority without his knowledge. William watched his father's face change and understood that this was no longer a financial crisis. It had become a betrayal inside the marriage itself. The evidence grew darker. One account carried the internal title, Continuity Reserve, a name suggesting emergency protection if the monarchy faced disruption. But the listed beneficiaries did not include Charles, William, Catherine, or any of their children. Worse, several payments had been approved shortly before bitter family disputes, making the fund look less like a shield and more like a weapon prepared in advance. William turned to the final page. He told the king that the transfers were not random and the approvals were not isolated. Someone close to Camilla had helped build the entire structure. Someone trusted enough to move through her private office without challenge. The king remained still, but the shock had hardened into something colder. The hidden accounts were shocking, but the names attached to them would turn a financial discovery into a deeply personal and painful act of betrayal. This was no longer simply about money. It was about a husband who believed loyalty had finally brought him peace, a wife who had spent decades fighting for security, and a son preparing to inherit a crown he suddenly feared had been compromised from within. Charles, Camilla, and William entered that room as a family. Within minutes, each began looking at the others as a potential threat. Charles felt the weight first. He had spent years defending Camilla's place at the center of royal life, tying his judgment and personal happiness to the belief that she could be trusted. The monarchy was not only a family but an institution, built around duty, succession, and public confidence. If the hidden accounts had been created beneath his authority, then the damage reached beyond marriage. It struck at the king's command itself. William carried a colder burden. He was not only protecting his future role, he was protecting Catherine, George, Charlotte, and Louis from arrangements designed without their knowledge. The crown meant the legal and ceremonial authority that would one day pass to him, but inheritance also carried private money, property, and long-term security. Any hidden structure around those assets could shape his children's future before he even took the throne. Camilla broke the silence. After the advisors left, she turned toward the prince and asked whether he had been investigating her personally. Her voice stayed controlled, but the anger underneath it was clear. William closed the folder and answered without raising his tone. He had investigated the money, he said, and her name had been waiting at the end. Charles gripped the arm of his chair. He watched his wife and son speak like rivals, each measuring every word. The Queen Consort felt cornered by the investigation, while William saw her fury as proof that the secrecy had been deliberate. The king wanted to protect her, yet every instinct of duty told him his son's questions could not be dismissed. The records offered no comfort. They named charitable foundations, private consultants, former household employees, and a protected secondary trust. A trust was a legal arrangement allowing money to be held and managed for chosen beneficiaries. Yet the final recipient of this one had been deliberately hidden behind coded entries. William turned another page and stopped. Catherine's household appeared only once. It was not listed to receive money. Instead, beside the entry, someone had written 4 words: future financial obstacle. Camilla looked away. Charles saw the movement and felt suspicion harden inside him. William immediately ordered the auditors to identify who had written the notation. The first trace led back several months, not to a bank meeting, but to a private royal ceremony at Windsor. To understand why Catherine's household had been marked as an obstacle, William would have to return to the exact moment when Camilla decided the future crown could no longer be left beyond her control. Every royal crisis has a moment that appears harmless when it happens. A sentence spoken too softly, a look held too long, a decision dismissed as protocol. Months before William opened the hidden accounts, one private ceremony changed everything. Few people understood its importance that day. Yet it was there, beneath polite applause and carefully chosen words, that Camilla made the decision that would eventually leave Charles frozen. Tension had already been growing between Camilla's private office and the household of the Prince and Princess of Wales. Staffing choices had become arguments. Charitable control had turned into a struggle over influence. Most dangerous of all was the question of financial independence, because money reserved for Catherine and her children would help protect the future king's family from pressure inside the palace. William had rejected several proposals that would have placed those funds under wider central supervision. He believed George, Charlotte, and Louis needed protection from internal politics long before he inherited the throne. Catherine supported him quietly, knowing that control over money could become control over duty, access, and even public position. The breaking point came during a private investiture rehearsal at Windsor Castle. An investiture was a formal ceremony in which honors were presented on behalf of the crown. Charles attended with a small group of senior aides, expecting a routine review. Camilla waited until the final arrangements were being discussed, then asked that a long-standing trust supporting Catherine's future duties be placed under her temporary supervision. William refused at once. His answer was calm but final. Camilla removed her gloves, placed them on the table, and looked directly at him. "Then another structure will have to be created," she said. Charles dismissed the remark as frustration. He told his son not to turn a procedural disagreement into a family conflict. William heard something else. He heard a warning. Later, in a private conversation at Adelaide Cottage, he told Catherine that the Queen Consort had started thinking beyond her ceremonial role and was searching for authority outside the usual chain of command. Catherine did not respond with anger. She felt dread. She feared that an open fight over money would divide the king and his heir at the worst possible moment, weakening both men and leaving the monarchy exposed. William tried to reassure her, but even he could not forget Camilla's words. The warning became real within 48 hours. A hidden account was created under a neutral administrative name designed to avoid direct royal scrutiny. The accountant responsible was soon transferred into Camilla's private office and ordered to report through a sealed internal channel. William later discovered the account's first major payment. It had funded a confidential legal assessment examining how much financial authority Camilla could retain during a change of reign. When William brought that legal assessment into the next meeting, the conflict could no longer remain hidden behind financial language or royal courtesy. The confrontation did not happen before advisors, lawyers, or courtiers. William wanted no prepared explanations, and no palace language designed to bury responsibility. He asked Camilla to meet him alone. Charles insisted on attending. Then the door closed. For the first time, the hidden accounts were no longer numbers on a page. They became accusations, spoken across a table by a future king to his father's wife. William had confirmed that the legal assessment examined ways to preserve Camilla's influence over selected trusts if Charles became unable to perform his full duties. A trust was a legal structure used to hold and manage money for named beneficiaries. To the prince, this was not simple protection. It looked like a private power base, built outside the authority of the man who would one day inherit the crown. William slid the assessment across the table. His voice remained controlled, but the question struck hard. Were you preparing for my father's absence, or for my reign? Camilla did not answer immediately. She stared at the pages, then looked back at him with anger rising beneath her silence. Camilla accused him of treating her like an intruder, after years of service. She said the accounts were safeguards, not weapons, because she had never believed William would protect her once he became king. The queen consort argued that security could not depend on goodwill alone, especially when the future monarch had never fully trusted her. William did not retreat. He told her fear might explain the accounts, but it could not excuse concealed money, hidden beneficiaries, and legal plans kept from Charles. The prince said she had not protected herself from uncertainty. She had protected herself from the family. Charles finally spoke. His voice was low and unsteady, as he asked why she had not come to him. Camilla answered that he would have refused. The words cut deeper than the financial records. The king had spent years defending her, yet she had built a system around the belief that his judgment could not be trusted. Camilla admitted authorizing the trust structure, but denied knowing the full scale of the transfers. She blamed a senior private financial advisor for expanding the arrangement beyond her instructions. William opened another page and revealed that her personal authorization code appeared on every major transaction. The room fell silent again. Charles ended the meeting with a direct order. Camilla's financial authority would be suspended immediately. The king believed the command would stop the damage. William knew better. He warned his father that several arrangements had already been activated and might no longer answer to palace authority. Charles had issued an order as monarch, yet the hidden architecture around the money was about to reveal that real control had already shifted somewhere else. Camilla may have signed the accounts, but she did not build them alone. Behind every transfer stood advisors who understood royal law, private banking, and the weaknesses of palace oversight. William had uncovered more than a concealed reserve. He had found a network designed to survive confrontation. And as Charles tried to shut it down, one brutal fact emerged. The crown's command was powerful, but private trusts answered to different rules. Royal legal officers warned that some accounts could be frozen within hours, while others were protected by trustees. A trustee was a person legally responsible for managing money on behalf of chosen beneficiaries, and that authority could not always be cancelled by a spoken order from the monarch. Camilla's structure had been divided across charitable funds, family reserves, and contingency accounts, making it difficult to dismantle without exposing the entire conflict. William demanded total disclosure. He believed any partial investigation would give hidden beneficiaries enough time to move money, destroy records, or activate further protections. The prince no longer saw delay as caution. He saw it as danger. Charles hesitated. Full disclosure could destroy Camilla's public standing and expose how little he had known about decisions made beneath his own authority. The king feared the scandal would not only damage his wife, it would make the country question his judgment as monarch. Charles sat alone in his study, with 2 suspension orders before him. He signed the first, then stopped halfway through the second. His pen remained above the page as he asked a trusted courtier whether protecting his wife now meant failing his son. The aide chose silence. The monarch lowered his head, realizing that no advisor could make the moral decision for him. William kept searching. A documented financial review identified the chief trustee as a former royal strategist who had once advised the household on succession planning, the preparation for power passing from one sovereign to the next. He had left official service after a bitter clash with the future king over who should control emergency funds during a change of reign. The discovery became darker. A protected clause gave that trustee the power to release emergency money if Camilla's royal position, residence, or personal security came under threat. Charles's suspension order had triggered the very condition the network had been designed to survive. Hours later, the continuity reserve moved again. £2 million vanished from the main account and reappeared inside the protected secondary trust before palace lawyers could stop it. William received the confirmed transfer record and immediately understood what it meant. Someone had anticipated the king's command. The transfer proved that real control had moved beyond the palace, and that whoever held it had already begun to act. By sunrise, the secret could no longer be contained within one room. Access codes were cancelled. Private staff were questioned. Trustees stopped answering palace calls. The machinery of royal life continued, but the family at its center had been shaken. Charles had lost confidence in the person beside him. William had lost patience with his father's hesitation. And Camilla was about to discover how quickly power disappears when doors stop opening. William ordered a complete review of every account linked to the hidden trusts. The prince wanted records preserved, transfers suspended, and every contact from the outside trustee reported at once. Charles approved the removal of financial signing privileges from Camilla's private office, meaning her staff could no longer authorize money connected to royal duties without direct oversight. Charles resented the speed of the crackdown. He feared his son was beginning to act like king before the crown had passed to him. The monarch understood the danger, but he also saw his marriage collapsing under the same pressure. William saw only the cost of delay. £2 million had already moved, and he refused to lose more, while everyone worried about appearances. William later spoke to Catherine in a private recorded conversation preserved by her household secretary. He told her that protecting his father could not mean protecting the deception around him. Catherine heard the anger in his voice, but she also heard grief. The future king was not fighting Charles. He was fighting the silence that had left him exposed. Camilla felt the new reality before anyone explained it. She approached her private administrative suite and found the electronic access disabled. A guard quietly told her the order had come from the king. The queen consort stood motionless for several seconds, then asked whether even her senior staff had been locked out. The guard confirmed that they had. Camilla returned to her apartments and dismissed everyone. She sat alone and removed a royal brooch from her coat, as though the symbol had suddenly become too heavy to carry. For the first time, she understood that the suspension was not symbolic. Her authority had been cut away. The investigation soon uncovered the purpose of the missing money. The transferred £2 million had not been spent or sent abroad. It had been placed into a trust, designed to finance Camilla's independent household after Charles's reign. A second clause guaranteed payments to 2 close family members for 10 years, no matter what the future palace decided. Charles read the finding in silence. Then he gave one final instruction. He asked to see Camilla alone. After days of lawyers and accusations, the fate of the royal marriage would turn on a conversation with no witnesses, no titles, and nowhere left to hide. There were no red boxes on the table, and no aides waiting outside with prepared answers. Charles had removed every symbol of official business because this meeting was not about constitutional power. It was about trust. Camilla entered expecting judgment from a monarch. Instead, she found a wounded husband who wanted to know whether their life together had ever felt secure enough, or whether she had always been preparing for the day he could no longer protect her. Charles already knew the investigation's central finding. Camilla had created the structure to secure her future household, personal staff, residence, and family support after a change of reign. A change of reign meant the moment one monarch's rule ended and another began. The accounts were not designed to overthrow William, but they had been built to survive beyond his control and without the king's informed consent. Charles asked the question without anger. When had she stopped trusting him? Camilla answered through a private recorded conversation preserved by the royal household. She said she had never stopped trusting him. She had stopped trusting what would happen after him. The words landed with quiet force. Charles reminded her that he had defended her through years of opposition, public anger, and private resistance. He had placed his name, judgment, and happiness beside hers. Fear of William, he said, did not justify deceiving the man who had stood between her and every threat. Camilla finally admitted the truth. She believed the prince would strip away her security the moment he inherited the crown. She feared losing her home, her staff, her protection, and any ability to support those closest to her. That fear became desperation. Desperation became planning, and planning hardened into secrecy. Charles felt his anger collapse into grief. He reached toward her hand, then stopped before touching it. Affection remained, but confidence had been broken. The king understood that love could survive betrayal, yet trust could not return, simply because both people wanted it back. Camilla made her decision. She agreed to surrender control of the protected trust, cancel the 10-year family guarantees, and provide William with a complete list of every advisor involved. The queen consort would no longer defend the hidden structure or hide behind those who had helped create it. Camilla asked for only one thing in return. She did not want Charles to defend her actions publicly. She wanted him to admit privately that years of hostility inside the royal family had helped create the fear that drove her. William accepted the surrender of the accounts, but the sudden restrictions were already visible. The family had reached its private reckoning, but beyond the palace gates, the world was already preparing its own verdict. By morning, the crisis belonged to everyone. The palace had released only a brief statement about an internal financial review, but the language was too careful and the silence too heavy. Broadcasters abandoned scheduled coverage. Newspaper editors cleared their front pages. Outside Buckingham Palace, strangers gathered beneath the royal standard, watching sealed vehicles enter and leave, as though each movement carried another piece of the truth. The palace confirmed that selected trust arrangements were being restructured, and that Camilla had temporarily surrendered all private financial authority linked to royal funds. A royal trust was a legal arrangement used to hold and manage money connected to family duties, security, or long-term support. Officials refused to name individual payments, but the lack of a direct denial convinced the public that William's discovery had reached far beyond a minor accounting dispute. Charles faced judgment from both sides. Supporters argued that the king had acted decisively once the accounts were exposed. Critics answered that his loyalty had allowed the hidden system to grow unchecked beneath his own roof. The monarch had tried to protect his marriage, but the public now questioned whether that instinct had weakened his command. William faced a different attack. Many praised the prince for protecting the future crown and forcing transparency where silence had ruled. Others accused him of humiliating his father before the end of the reign. The future king had stopped the money, but the victory came at a painful cost. Every decisive move made Charles appear less in control. The London Chronicle captured the crisis in one brutal front page. Beneath a photograph of Charles leaving Buckingham Palace, the headline read, "The King Who Never Knew." A smaller image showed William arriving with the black audit folder under his arm. The contrast said everything. One man carried the burden of discovery. The other carried the shame of not seeing it sooner. Charles watched the television coverage from a private room. He saw the headline, switched off the screen, and told an aide that the humiliation belonged to him, because the trust had been created under his roof. The king did not blame the press. He blamed the silence that had made the story possible. An evening broadcaster later described the scandal as the moment private fear collided with public duty. The phrase spread across the country. Then the palace issued a final financial update. Every hidden account had been located. The missing money was secure. The outside trustee had been removed. Only one decision remained. The accounts had been closed, but only the king could decide whether the betrayal would destroy his family or redefine the crown that survived it. The final decision came without ceremony. No grand announcement was staged, and no family member stood beside the king when he signed it. Charles had spent days frozen between love and duty, but the time for hesitation had ended. The hidden accounts were closed. The money was secured. What remained was the harder question. How could a monarch forgive his wife without excusing the betrayal, and trust his son without surrendering his own crown? Charles formally dissolved the continuity reserve, cancelled every protected beneficiary clause, and placed the recovered money under an independently audited royal trust. An independent audit meant outside financial experts would examine every movement without taking orders from the family. William received permanent oversight of any structure affecting Catherine, their children, or the future sovereign, ensuring that no parallel account could ever again be created without his knowledge. The king called one final private meeting. He placed the signed order between Camilla and William and declared that the accounts were finished. The outside advisors were dismissed. The hidden protections were cancelled. Most importantly, the crown would never again operate through secret channels controlled by fear. Camilla accepted the ruling without protest. She kept her title and her personal place beside Charles, but she permanently lost independent authority over monarchy-linked trusts. The queen consort understood the difference between forgiveness and restored power. He had chosen not to abandon her, but he would never again allow affection to replace oversight. William did not demand her removal. The prince told his father that protecting the monarchy had required truth, not revenge. He had exposed the accounts because silence threatened the future, not because he wanted to punish the woman beside the king. In that moment, the future monarch proved he could act firmly, without allowing anger to rule him. Charles then admitted his own failure. His instinct to shield Camilla had allowed fear to grow into secrecy. The monarch remained deeply wounded, but he refused to let betrayal become the final definition of their marriage. Love had survived, though trust would now have to be rebuilt under harder rules. William left the room without celebration. Charles closed the black audit folder and handed it to an aide for permanent archiving. Camilla remained seated beside him. Neither reached for the other, but neither walked away. The recovered funds were redirected toward transparent royal charities and future public duties. The secret reserve became a visible act of accountability. The king had been frozen by the discovery, but his final decision released the monarchy from the secret that threatened to divide it. Charles chose duty without abandoning compassion. William chose accountability without vengeance. Camilla learned that security built through secrecy could never truly protect her. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.